process. Man, processes are extremely important for your business health. They're important for your life. Having consistency and structure, it's what every business needs. It's what every business owner yearns for, that they want to create in their business. You guys, to get scale real estate company, you're absolutely going to need processes that followed by all. You're going to want processes for sales, operations, finance, and office management, so on and so forth. And they are important. But let me tell you this, people ask me all the time, can I just follow your processes? Let me copy your processes. There are coaches out there who actually give you their processes to utilize in your business. But guess what? It just doesn't work. All of our businesses are different. All of us are different. I may want my operations department run a little bit differently than the way you want it, than the way she wants it or he wants it. Processes need to be built by people inside of your business, right? So to give you an idea, all of my internal processes, not a single one was written by me. I've reviewed each and every one. I've poked some holes. I've maybe challenged some individuals, but I did not write a single process. I found who sat in the seat and wrote the process for that specific department. The first thing you should be doing in your real estate business is, if you have people who are running departments, and that may be you right now, you should absolutely get them to begin the process of writing what's called your core processes. You do need to document all your core processes. If you got a team and you have department heads like sales manager, operations manager, office manager, whatever it is, you begin to have them write processes. And if it's just you, you can write some of your core processes, such as your listing process, your buyer process, your overarching sales process. But it's going to be written by your office, not by mine, because every state's different, every county's different, every brokerage is different, everything is unique. I don't want to just give you fish, I want to teach you how to fish. And because as your business transforms and evolves, it's important to know how to create better processes, how to refine your processes, how to create micro processes as well. So let's jump right into it. This is the 3 steps to process. This is the 3-step process to actually documenting them and sharing them with all. So you see, number 1, you have to identify your processes. So for us, it was listing process. What is our process about listings? Then we had a buyer process. What's our process regarding buyers? And then we realized, you know what? We need our sales process. We need our operations process. We need our HR process. You know, for us, we started creating them a little bit mishmashy, but then we realized, hey, we need to get our base foundational processes in place. What are your foundational processes? What's your HR process? You know, for hiring, firing, reviewing, rewarding, maybe even recognizing. What's your finance process? Accounts receivable process, accounts payable process. What is your transaction coordinating process? What's your listing coordinating process? Start to identify some of the processes that you want built. Then from there, you're going to go through and document them. I'm going to show you something here in just a minute, how to go back through the steps so you can begin to document them. But we're not going to document every process, right? We are not a Fortune 50 company with 25,000 employees where the operational manual is this big. We are going to be doing the 20/80. So we're going to be documenting 20% of the steps, right? That really overarching cover 80% of the process. So these will be 1 to 2 pages, 8.5 by 11. It's not every single step. You're going to have people in your organization who you give autonomy to because you're an entrepreneurial organization. You want to make sure, though, that you've documented the high level 20%. Then finally, how to share it with them and get it followed by all. How to share your processes with your organization and how to get every single step followed by all. What does that followed by all actually look like? So let's jump into it. All right, so step number 1 identify. And as you guys can see here, I've written some things on the whiteboard, but you guys need to identify which processes you choose to document. I will say I recommend working on micro-focused processes first because they're easier rather than macro. And here's what I mean by that. On the left here, you see processes such as the HR process, the sales process, the operations process, accounts receivable, payable process. These are big processes, overarching, that the operations process may consist of a listing process, transaction management process, inspection process, all different types that, it's what operations means to you and your business. The same with sales process. It may consist of working with buyers and sellers, all these different types of things. So these are big macro processes. They took me a while to figure out my style or our style in which we wrote these. And to be completely frank, I didn't write any of them. I had people who wrote them. I trained them how to do this, and then they went and did it. And once they came back to me, I started poking holes, and then I bless it. We started here, and I actually participated in writing some of these processes, which are more micro processes. You see the listing process. The listing process was actually written by our listing coordinator. The listing process actually runs into our operational process. It's part of the operations process. The listing process is 1 page, 8.5 by 11, and we took the macro components of it and added it to the operational process later on. The pond process, so that's prospecting out of the pond, right? There's 8.5 by 11 process on how to do this, but it's part of the sales process. Then we go here, the sales consultation process. This is my 7-step system, which a lot of you guys have seen, on how to conduct a professional sales consultation. But that's part of the sales process again. So, OSA interview process, once again, part of HR process. So these were easier for us to do at the beginning, to wrap our heads around how to build internal processes. But then as time went on, we got really good and we built these macro processes, which we call our way, the CHT way of doing things. So the first thing I want you guys to do is to identify what are the processes you want to begin with. So we're going to play some elevator music here in a moment. I'm going to give you guys about 1 minute, and I want you to take out a piece of paper and pen right now and start going through it. Like, take a piece of paper and pen. What are the processes I want to begin to write? So I'm going to give you guys 60 seconds so you can grab a piece of paper and pen. You don't need to pause this training. Piece of paper, pen, start thinking, what are some of the processes you want to begin to write? All right, now that we've identified the processes that we want to focus on, now we're going to go to step 2, which is documenting them. We're going to document these processes. So what you do is this. You go and you put these boxes in order. And some of you guys have seen these boxes because we use this exercise when building scorecard measurables, or KPIs, key performance indicators, in which we measure people's performance in the company. But if you look at this, you want to put the end result, like, listing a home, buying a home, whatever it is. What is the end result? And then what you do is you go backwards and you look at the major functions of it, right? So if we do the listing process, what is the end result? Listing sold, right? Or transfer listing under contract. Maybe the listing's under contract and it goes from your listing coordinator to your transaction coordinator. Well, the listing process would end then once the listing is under contract. Or if it's a buyer, right? Working with a buyer, part of your sales process. Maybe the end result is, boom, buyer under contract, handed to transaction coordinator. Cool. This would be the buyer process then. Whatever it is, what is the end result? Then what you do is you write down, you go backwards, you think, what are the major steps? The major steps, not every step. If I said, hey, you have to put down only 5 steps, what would they be? And that's kind of what I tell my team. When it comes to micro processes, it's only 4 to 5 major steps. Now, if it's a macro process, now we're looking at 7 to 9 major steps. So what are the major steps, right? You got to work your way backwards. Then once you've done that, under each major step, you're going to put 2 to 5 bullet points. So 2 to 5 bullet points, whatever it is. If you need 5 for all 4 steps, cool. If you need 3 bullet points here, 5 bullet points here, 2 bullet points here, that's okay as well. But you're going to do 2 to 5 bullet points under each major step, and it's going to identify the who, the what, the where, the when, the how. Like you're trying to address these things in these major steps. You're not writing down, send this email to this person. No, that's not what we're doing when documenting processes. You're an entrepreneurial business. People inside of your organization need to be given autonomy. These are the 2 to 5 or the who, what, when, where, how of the major steps. Now that you've done that, this is ready to come together as a documented process. Micro processes, like we talked about earlier, listing process and OSA, recruiting process or whatnot. It's only 1 to 2 pages, absolutely maximum. That's it. Remember, we're only documenting 20%. We're documenting 20%. All right. The macro process is like your HR process, your sales process, all this. This will be 1 to 5 pages. This might be a little bit longer. But guys, this is what you do. End result, work it backwards, major steps. Under each major steps, 3 to 5 bullet points of who, what, when, where, how. And that's how you're going to begin the documenting process. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, visionary, and you have people around you, you teach them to do this or have them watch this and then have them do this process, not you, right? So if I went into my company today, I wouldn't write any of these processes. I go to my listing coordinator, have her do this. I go to transaction coordinator, have them do this. The operations manager, have them do this. They would all do this because they know the key functions, right? The one area that you're going to run into some challenges is with your internal administrative staff, like maybe your listing coordinator, your operations people, because they're very detail oriented. They're usually higher C personalities, and they want to document each and every step. That's not what this is about. This is a high level overview, right? You need to teach them that high level overview. 1 to 2 pages for micro, 1 to 5 pages for macro. And on the micro, 2 pages is even a little bit long. We really want to see that on 1 piece of paper, but this is how you go through the process and document it. Get ready right now, because now I'm going to teach you guys how to actually share it with all, get everybody following it. All right, now we go into step 3, which is how to get it followed by all, how to share it with everybody, how to package the whole thing together. And so this is what it looks like. So once you've done that, you've got these processes. You can make them look pretty if you want, but you've got these processes coming in. I always recommend grab a binder. Grab a binder like we had back in school, put a fun little cover on it, and it should read right there, the way. Like, so for us, it says the CHT way, which means the Corey Home Team way. And, we've got those old high school dividers, right? We take a little piece of paper out, writing down on it, what it is, but we document these processes, right? So every time we add a new process in there, we just, create a new little tab, pop it in there, close it, and it's here at the office for all to see. But you need to package it up for people to have. Then what you need to do is you need to make sure you're training on it. So when you finish a new process, you need to actually train everybody on it, because you just can't create a process, stick in a binder and call it a day. You need to share it with all. You need to go through, and when you're conducting a meeting, maybe you need to call an offline meeting to share with all, to go through, to explain, because then there's no misconceptions or misunderstandings. You need to actively be training people on that process. Once you've done that, now you need to measure. So if it's of the listing process, you measure the success of your listing coordinator based off the process. So what I mean is their scorecard or key performance indicator is based on the major steps of the process. So their measurables that you're looking at weekly are tied to the major components or the major steps in the process. See how that exercise we just went over works hand in hand? When you're building measurables, you're simultaneously building the process for the seat in which they sit in. So you got to be able to measure it. And if it gets off track, you need to solve it. So from there, measure it weekly during the L10s, measure the people sitting in the seat. Every seat that people sit in should have a process. All right, then from there, you got to hold people accountable. If they're not following through, they're not hitting the goal that's tied to the major step, then you need to hold them accountable in weekly meetings. You need to troubleshoot. You need to really figure out what is the problem. Why aren't you hitting that number that's tied to this core step in the core process or in this process? I hope that makes sense for you guys. I'm actually going to grab the marker here in a second. Actually, I'll do it right now. When we said, what is the end result? And I said, then you write down the major steps in the process. Look at it like this. End result. We did another video. We did training tied around creating your scorecard measurables, right? Or creating scorecard measurables for team members. And I said, what you want to do is go backwards and you have goals attached to them, right? It's the same with process. So when you're building this listing coordination process, what is, this is major step 1, major step 2, major step 3. Well, these are the major steps tied in the process, right? But you're also down below it, so you can measure and hold people accountable on a weekly basis that they're doing these major steps to the best of their ability, need to have a goal or measurable tied to it. Because if you can't measure it, you can't really put it in your core process. You need to figure out a way to measure that major step. And that measurable is put in the weekly L10 meetings, the weekly level 10 meetings, right? This is where you're reviewing it at the scorecard measurables and you're holding people accountable. So if they're not hitting that goal, you're working through that process with them. All right, cool. Hopefully that answers any questions that you guys have. And then finally, update it often. Mine change all the time. The bigger the company grows, the more the processes change. Things happen. You learn things about your business. Your business evolves. So continuously update those processes, and it goes right back to step number 2. Once you update, then you begin to train again, and then you may have to change the measurables. But this is how you share it, you package it, and you get people to follow it.